Okay, welcome to module number 4, training like a beast. Without a doubt, exercise has to be a part of your health regime if you're looking to boost testosterone. In fact, exercise can be such a potent stimulus to boost testosterone levels. However, it really does come down to the exact type of exercise that you're doing. In fact, a number of men are currently doing the wrong type of exercise that can actually be lowering testosterone levels and increasing stress hormones. So, throughout this module, we'll uncover the best types of training to incorporate into your regime, and it'll be very similar to what I did personally to max out my testosterone as high as possible naturally. So, within the module, we'll have a look at how exercise actually specifically impacts testosterone. We'll look at exercises that have the ability to lower testosterone that a number of men are doing on a daily basis without even knowing the repercussions on their hormones. And then we'll have a look at the best types of exercise for increasing testosterone that I have researched and also that I incorporate on a weekly basis. And then we'll also have a look at how many daily steps you should be aiming for. So, like I said before, exercise can either positively or negatively impact testosterone levels. And this is important to distinguish because when it comes to structuring out your training routine and your exercise splits, there is actually the ideal way to train to maximize testosterone production. So, a good example would be a sprinter versus a marathon runner. Now, I want to ask you a question right now. Which individual looks like they have higher testosterone? I would hope that you said a sprinter instead of a marathon runner. Look at the muscle mass and look at the differences in muscle mass between the sprinter and the marathon runner. Exercise can indeed have a significant impact on testosterone levels in men, but whether it's positive or negative depends upon various factors, including the type, intensity, duration, and frequency of exercise. So, exercises that specifically lower testosterone, this is important to understand because we want to be avoiding this at all costs. Because, if our goal is to maximize testosterone, we want to be avoiding these types of exercise. First of all, long distance running or marathon training. So, endurance exercises, especially when performed for extended periods at high intensity, can actually elevate cortisol levels. And this chronic elevation of cortisol can actually suppress testosterone production. Marathon runners or individuals engaging in extensive endurance training may experience a decrease in testosterone levels, particularly if they do not allow for adequate recovery between training sessions. Now, obviously, it's from a longevity perspective, having a higher VO2 max or aerobic threshold or aerobic capacity is obviously going to be beneficial for longevity. But if our goal is specifically to boost testosterone levels as high as possible naturally, do not engage in long distance running or marathon training. If you want to do like a long distance run, ideally maximum 3 to 4 kilometers per run. But of course, there's a better type of running to do, which I'll share with you shortly, and that's actually sprinting. This is actually by far the best type of exercise because it's short duration, high intensity, requiring fast twitch muscle fibers versus instead of recruiting these slow twitch muscle fibers. And so this is going to have a long distance training is more slow twitch, and this engages the aerobic system much more, and that's going to lead to compromised testosterone production. But having said that, if you go for a 3 or 4 kilometer run once a week, or maybe twice a week, and then the rest of your training is weight training, that is completely fine. It's not going to lower your testosterone levels. It's only if you're doing like maybe longer than 40 minutes of running at a time, or cycling, or rowing, or swimming, just really, long duration medium intensity training is going to lead to elevations in cortisol, increases the sympathetic nervous system, which downregulates testosterone production. Linking closely with that is the typical issue that a lot of men face, which is overtraining. So, the typical signs and symptoms of overtraining, just ask yourself the following questions. Have you had persistent fatigue? So, feeling excessively tired or fatigued despite adequate rest or sleep? Have you noticed decreased performance? So, noticing a decline in athletic performance, strength, or endurance despite continued training? Or have you even noticed persistent muscle soreness? So, experiencing muscle soreness or pain that doesn't go away even after adequate rest? Another typical sign is increased resting heart rate. So, a consistently elevated resting heart rate can indicate excessive stress on the body due to overtraining. And then also, we can see insomnia or disturbed or disrupted sleeping patterns. So, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep or experiencing unrestful sleep can actually be a sign of overtraining. We can also see mood changes, loss of appetite, potentially even severe weight loss, increased susceptibility to falling sick or illness. So, overtraining can actually weaken the immune system, leading to frequent infections, prolonged recovery time from illness. So, these are typical signs and symptoms of overtraining. So, what happens here is a lot of guys get extremely enthusiastic and excited about training, which is awesome, but they tend to just go too hard too soon. You need to build up your training. You don't go fully all out, maximum efforts for every single workout. That's going to lead to burnout and overtraining and decreased testosterone production. We really want to make sure that we're allowing for proper rest and recovery. So don't underestimate the impact of rest days and recovery, because those rest days are really what's crucial for eliciting the adaptations to those hard training sessions. So, what are the best types of exercise for increasing testosterone production? Remember at the start, I said that there's actually specific types of exercise that can increase testosterone. Well, first of all, we have weight training or resistance training. So, weight training or resistance training or high intensity interval training involves large muscle groups. And also bear in mind that there will be a free weight training plan bonus for a more detailed breakdown about how you can structure your workouts. That's included as part of this course. So just remember you have access to that. But in general, if you're going to be doing exercise, aim for high intensity, short duration activities. So resistance training, weight training, compound movements, squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, chin ups, these are great for testosterone production. Now, resistance training, particularly compound exercises, as I mentioned, they actually recruit large muscle groups, which have been shown to significantly increase testosterone levels in healthy men. Now, the stress placed on the muscles during the weightlifting phase stimulates the release of testosterone and growth hormone, which are all crucial for muscle growth and repair. So, basically, what happens is the body is faced with an extreme stimulus, like heavy weights, for example. And the only way that the body can overcome the heavy weight is by secreting testosterone. And then that testosterone that's secreted into the blood, which sort of links back into that neuroendocrine reboot method, that actually tells the testes to make more testosterone. So if you're combining all the other modalities and interventions, like the exact diet plan, optimizing your sleep, dialing in your supplements, this is all going to contribute to rebooting the neuroendocrine system, accelerating the signal from the brain to the testes to support and produce more testosterone, and ultimately lead to better quality of life and all of the desired symptoms of high testosterone. Similar to this, looking at high intensity interval training. Now, what happens here is that interval training or sprint training is considered high intensity interval training. So, what happens is these short bursts of intense exercise followed by brief recovery periods allows the body to tap into the ATP PC creatine system. So this can actually elicit supremely high levels of testosterone secretion after the exercise. And remember that it doesn't have to be, sprinting on a flat surface. It can be even hill sprints or beach sprints. There's different types of sprinting you can do as long as it's very high intensity, followed by bouts of rest and recovery. Your heart rate will definitely get very, very high, but that is a good thing. It's going to even promote more fat burning, and as in the fat burning occurs post workout because high intensity interval training really shifts the predominant fuel source towards carbohydrates. You end up burning fats in the remaining part of the day after. So you actually burn a lot more body fat. There's more of an afterburn effect with intense exercise. Now, here's the impact of sprinting on DHT. Now, dihydrotestosterone is elevated following sprint exercise in healthy young men. So, DHT, as I said, is 3 to 10 times stronger than testosterone. It promotes libido, aggression, confidence, resilience. And what we can see here is that DHT, which is stronger than testosterone, is actually elevated following sprint training in healthy young men. So that's scientific proof that sprinting is definitely, a really powerful way to stimulate the androgenic the androgenic response in the human body. Bear in mind, it doesn't actually need to be sprinting. Like sprinting is definitely the gold standard, but you can do this on a rowing machine. You can do this on a spin bike or a bike. You can do this on a assault bike. It just has to be high intensity, short duration activities. Now, you're probably wondering about daily step count. This is an important concept to understand because, like I said before, if you're constantly sitting down all day at work, this is a problem. This will lead to insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, and it can also compromise testosterone production. So, how many daily steps should you be aiming for? Well, looking at this study here, the study was titled Association of Daily Step Count and Serum Testosterone Among Men in the United States. The study identified that compared to taking less than 4,000 steps per day, men who took 4,000 to 8,000 or 8,000 to 12,000 had a lower odd of hypogonadal total testosterone levels. Basically, what that means is that ideally we want to be aiming for around 8,000 steps per day to maximize testosterone production. So that's definitely achievable, particularly if you want to, utilize a walking treadmill desk. That's going to be a really quick and easy way to get your steps in whilst you're working. So I've actually got a treadmill desk set up. You can easily smash 10,000 steps in on that, get your work done on your treadmill before you eat your first meal in the morning. Ideally, the whole goal and premise here is just stop being sedentary, stop being inactive. The more active you are, the more body fat you burn, the better your metabolic flexibility and the higher your testosterone levels. So, really prioritize getting at least 8,000 steps in per day, stacking that with high intensity interval training or sprint training or weight training. And as a reminder, you'll see that training plan and in detailed training plan in the bonuses section of the course. So, definitely remember that this is the best way to maximize your testosterone through exercise.